Hi YouTube, my name's Sean Connors and this is Outsiders, and this particular video is not in any particular sequence. I could have easily used this for a mailbag program. It's a question given to me by Derek, Lycan101, who's asked me questions before, but this is a brilliant question, and he said, "Hey Sean, I had a quick question for you. What is your position on having guns in either D&D or Pathfinder or any other fantasy setting? Do you think it complicates the games? Does it add any more strategy or anything like that?" The reason I ask is because I'm thinking of adding guns into my campaign setting that I created, but I wanted to see if you had any experience with using them before I made my life too difficult as a DM. Thanks, Sean, and congratulations again on your new edition. And once again, thank you very much for all those who've sent in those messages. I do appreciate that. Yeah, I've had some experience of using guns in fantasy settings. I'll be honest, I've only been able to use them in my the best setting for them, in my view, without sounding like a broken drum, is Warhammer. Now, I can't speak actually, funny enough, for the modern setting of Warhammer because I've not actually at any point so far in our playtesting of it and starting campaigns in it have I actually seen any player go in the direction of using gunpowder weapons yet. Although it has been used against the players on one occasion, and it seems to work like it did in the old days. And the good thing about the Warhammer setting is the fact that it's got a very Renaissance feel, so it's sort of 14th, 15th century, so gunpowder weapons really come in, and it really, really works. I think it could work in D&D and Pathfinder, but what you've got to do, it's got to be the right setting. So almost as if you can imagine you want to move the game along to a period maybe where certain things in the past have been lost, so the magic is a little bit more low-key, everything's a bit more mysterious. It could work, but really is a bit of a minefield because, what are you going to do in terms of the damage with those guns? I know there are rules in Pathfinder and D&D that cover off gunpowder weapons, but they don't really work very well because to me it doesn't really, in the rules that they've written, they don't seem to do anything different. So it's very much like, I saw in one situation where they put a laser in, for example, in one game. Somebody found an old tech weapon in a D&D game or Pathfinder game, and that's great, but it was just 6d6 damage, which is very powerful at low level, but later on it really means nothing. So what? It's just damage. It doesn't actually mean anything. It doesn't have any flavour. The one thing that Warhammer did really well, really create the flavour, was the fact that these things can fail, that they can, they can damage you, they can backfire. When they get wet, they're useless. And it really has a good set of rules around it. Plus, as well, in the old days, it was very, it pretty much ignored armour and things like that. And I really liked that, and I thought that was a really, really good touch. So I think if you're going to introduce gunpowder weapons into a fantasy setting, you've really got to have nailed your background really cleverly on your game. You've got to really think about the repercussions. Because, really, in theory, if you said a gunpowder weapon does, I don't know, a basic musket was doing D12, well, it's no different than using a hand axe, is it? The only advantage is over range. But even then, they're fairly inaccurate beasts. So I'm not sure what you're gaining by using it. If you said, on the other hand, that although they're fairly, gunpowder weapons ignore armour, then there's, that's interesting. That definitely adds a reason for someone actually maybe wanting to experiment and dabble in them. But you need some rules on maybe the fumble side where things don't go so well. But you need to be a bit careful because if it becomes too difficult for the players to do, then they're not likely to actually want to do it. And I'm guessing you want to put it in to create a bit of interest. So I think you've got to get your background period really well worked out. It needs to really feel something different to create that atmosphere where this does exist. That is quite a tricky proposition to pull off, particularly if you've got experienced D&Ders or Pathfinder players around your table. It's going to be very tough to pull off. So, yeah, I certainly wouldn't, by very definition, I wouldn't say don't do it, because I think you've got to keep challenging yourself as a DM, and I like the idea of going in that direction. I've done something not too dissimilar, very, very recently, very tongue-in-cheek session, which I think I got away with, which was a little bit futuristic for a fantasy game in my Pathfinder campaign. I put a little tad of the unusual in there, but I was able to hide it underneath the scene, I think, fairly accurately, so it wasn't really clear to the players what was going on. But on another occasion, it could have backfired on me quite badly. But I think you just got to temper it with a bit of caution. So just to recap for you, Derek, yes, you could do it. You need to think carefully about the setting. Be very wary around what the advantages are going to be of these powder weapons and the disadvantages of having them, and also how expensive and readily available they're going to be, and think about those sort of repercussions. There's nothing wrong in it. I think I've seen some very good little systems. There's no reason why D&D and Pathfinder couldn't move forward to maybe the 16th, 17th century, swashbuckling time period. Be bloody awesome, actually. I'd certainly recommend it. Anyway, I've been Sean Connors. This has been Outsiders. Take care of yourselves, guys. Until the next time, all the best.